exhilarating JIT feature. He held his own, and I think it's up for debate who had the better performance, but off a first listen, it might be M.
That was one of our reactions to Eminem's new album, The Death of Slim Shady, his new studio album since 2020, with his last album being Music to Be Murdered By. If you guys want to check out the full live album reaction that Lou and I did with the community, it's available to you guys on Patreon, so you guys know the drill. All you guys got to do is check the pinned comment, and you'll have access to our entire reaction catalog. But Lou, let's get into this. The return of Eminem. You and I have been listening to this artist for such a long time, and he's low-key the rapper that got us into hip-hop. So let's talk about it. What did you like about the album?
I'll tell you this, bro. I mean, I really wanted this album to be quality just because with the last couple of releases, Music to Be Murdered By, Kamikaze, Revival, Marshall Mathers LP2, we haven't really been the biggest fans of them. And I feel like with this album, in terms of what I liked, I mean, there's definitely a lot of highlight performances from M. Looking at something like Fuel, I think that was the best collaboration on the entire album. I love the variety of flows. I love the quick rapping. I love the energy that he brought in to match JID's. Apart from that, Renaissance as an intro. Again, I love the topical focus of a track like that, sort of one of those classic Eminem songs where he's ripping into the critics, he's ripping into the fans for being overly critical, not only of his art, but also the careers of Kendrick and Lil Wayne and so many other rappers. So I think Eminem does a good job on certain tracks here. I think he hasn't lost his funny side. Like, there's so many humorous moments across the album, like him poking fun at the Diddy situation, for example. That being said, I do feel like he overuses a lot of jokes and overuses a lot of targets. For example, I must have heard Caitlyn Jenner's name being brought into this like 30 times, and certain disses or like him poking fun at certain people, it kind of comes off as forced a lot of the time on this project. Obviously, you have some more emotional cuts on here, like Somebody Save Me, or even looking at Temporary, where you have, you know, the classic Haley tribute track, and especially on the last one, he's talking from the perspective of if he had died, what would be the messages he'd like to leave off to his daughter. It was sentimental. It was also formulaic. I mean, you kind of get those songs on quite a few Eminem albums before. Decent, but what about you? Like, how did you enjoy the experience, bro?
Well, listen, I'm not gonna say that this is a top 3 album in his discography. I think that, you know, after first listen, I want to say that I've listened to it once. And by the way, before any of you guys decide to go into any fucking comment sections, there's a full album review after a full week of listening coming out on Monday. Or should I say a full weekend with multiple listens and dive deeping into lyrics. So I want to say this after my first listen. It's definitely not in the upper echelon of his catalog, but it was nice to see him have fun on this album, you know? And I feel like he felt comfortable for the most part on this project. I mean, going back to, let's say, a Revival, it was just awkward. A lot of the performances felt flat and it felt awkward, but with this, he was in his element. It's kind of hard for him to not deliver on this sort of standpoint because he's been doing it since the beginning of his career. There was other songs that I really enjoyed as far as just like lyrical topics go, like Lucifer and Antichrist. I feel like that song run of Lucifer, Antichrist, and then after that Fuel was really cool to see. But besides that, you do get certain songs, at least that I'm not a fan of. Like example, I would say probably something like a Habits or even a Bad One where just not a fan of the choppy flows, and I'm not a big fan of White Gold. So, I mean, whatever. I could probably do without those songs. But like you said, like, it's Eminem going back into a Slim Shady bag, you know? And I feel like, narratively speaking, and again, I want to go back into the album to be able to give my official verdict on this. I feel like maybe from tracks 1 all the way up to probably Guilty Conscious 2, where he probably kills off the Slim Shady alter ego and finally puts it to bed after all these years. Once you go from like 14 to 19, there's not much topical focus, and it kind of gets lackluster at that. One thing I did like, though, were the skits. I found the skits funny as fuck. Something like Guess Who's Back, where you get the return of Ken Kniff. I've always been a massive fan of that fictional character and like Eminem's lore in his universe, so it was cool to make him see a comeback there. But even being able to see maybe Bizarre make a crazy comeback on Antichrist, you know, talking about abortions again, that was, I mean, that's classic Bizarre. But regardless, though, I wanna save my judgment after more listens. That's what I want to say. I want to give it the weekend. I want to go through everything, but I do agree with you in the fact that like there was a lot of repeated angles,
There
like the Megan Thee
was.
Stallion stuff, the Caitlyn Jenner stuff, and I don't mind. I mean, it's Eminem. You go after it, like he's been doing it forever with people like, Hillary Clinton, for example, or other targets back then. It's just with this, it was like constant. Like it was like every single track you had gotten them. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Do you feel like it was forced, or do you feel like it was well put in? But how about you? What did you take out of the album after first listen?
Well, I think a big part of this album, like Eminem himself tweeted, was the fact that you have to listen in order because it is a concept album, and obviously it's a mental struggle between fighting off the Slim Shady character and Eminem wanting to kill him off for good. And on Guilty Conscience too, that's what the track is about. It's sort of like this inner conversation between Slim Shady and Eminem himself. And I just felt like the concept as a whole was a little bit confusing in the sense that he kills off the character. Then he says that he has a dream about it when he speaks to his manager, Paul. And it just felt like Eminem was maybe like saying, you know what, fuck it. At this point, I can't defend these wild, controversial bars anymore. So now in 2024, in this PC climate, I'm just gonna kill off the character so that I don't have to go back. I don't have to go back to it, and I can move on to it. I can move on to Eminem and maybe the less wild shit and the less like antics based stuff, just so that I can put it to bed for good. But it just didn't flow in a way that made sense to me. So again, maybe with more listens, it'll click better in terms of what he was trying to go for. But I just felt like the concept itself lacked a purpose, because if you don't want to rap as Slim Shady anymore, then why did you like go into the Slim Shady essence for the first like 10, 12 tracks just to kill him off? Like, I was a bit confused with that aspect of it. Apart from that, of course, you're going to get your onslaught of really cringe bars, especially on a song like Bad One, where he goes into like the whole Avengers bars. Like, for example, Money Pile, like Tony Stark's, that's how much Iron Man. Or I feel incredible as the Hulk, meaning I'm trying to smash. I mean,
There's even this one. Yeah, this whole subgenre with all these corny white rappers, I'm not a fan. It ain't my fault, but like sock puppets, I had a hand in it. So, and the thing is, too, is like with his earlier catalog, I mean, maybe with the exception of an encore, yes, there was like these, on the borderline of like, well, could I see this as corny, or do I see this as cool and inventive? And they came off naturally, maybe in other studio albums. But when you're getting bars like this, it doesn't feel too good, especially on a song like Bar One. So I wasn't a big fan of that song. Even at that, the White Gold feature wasn't great. But another thing that I wasn't a big fan of was low-key the production on the album.
yep.
I felt like, yes, you got your classic Dr. Dre production. I believe he had credits, if I'm not mistaken, on Lucifer. And then he also had
Antichrist?
no, he
No,
was
he
not. He
didn't.
did not produce Antichrist. Anyways, I'm gonna go through the credits over the weekend, and I'll keep you guys updated once we deliver the review. But another question for you, right? Because we had gotten Tobey before the album, we had also gotten Houdini. How do you feel like they fit in the album context now that you've listened to them? And are they some of the better tracks on the track list? Have they aged well with you? How do you feel about them?
Surprisingly, before getting the album, I wasn't too big on either single. I felt like ultimately Houdini was him almost parodying himself and trying to make another Without Me, and it just felt formulaic. It didn't feel like Eminem was bringing anything new to the Slim Shady character. But you still got some funny lines like the Black Guy Peas line and a couple of other disses that were clever. But it sounded maybe better within the track list just because of the lack of high quality tracks that you get within it. When it comes to Tobey, the beat feels a bit one dimensional to me with that synth loop that plays throughout it. And then, you're getting Eminem rapping from the perspective of Eminem, sort of talking about how he's still winning the belts. He's still the best rapper in the game. Decent performance from Babytron. Big Sean, in my opinion, spazzed out and had the most impressive lyrical performance on that track. But it was interesting to me that those ended up being some of my favorite songs on a 19-track album. I just felt like with a 4-year wait, I expected much more, bro. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how much replay value there's gonna be within these tracks. Like I've gotten Slim Shady in the past that was way more topically focused, way more lyrically inclined, and rapped over better beats ultimately. So I don't know really what the silver linings are here, to be honest with you. I do like the fact that there's not like an overabundance of like love tracks. There was barely any love tracks on
That was
here.
a W.
There was no like pop attempts. There was none of that. So I'll
We
take
didn't
the
see
W
Pink
there.
on this track list.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see
You
Pink.
just got the one Skylar Gray feature, which was fine.
Yeah, but that was good though.
It was actually a good performance vocally. Absolutely.
I think that was maybe one of the strongest.
How did you feel about the hooks throughout this? Because there were a couple that were good, right?
Yeah, I liked a couple of them. I believe it was the hook on Antichrist. I feel like that was really good. There was no hook on Renaissance, if I'm mistaken. Yeah, it's all one long verse. I've always kind of not enjoyed the hook on Houdini, but I could see how people are liking it. It's a bit catchy. But besides that, like I'm not going to this Eminem album for hooks. I want to take some time because again, it's 19 songs. I got only one listening on it. This is really just my initial thoughts. So I'm going to take the weekend to be able to like really bump this album and then deliver the album review. So guys, with that being said, album review coming on Monday. I'm going to save my official verdict for then. There's things I like about it. There's things that I don't like about it. So I think Lou and I are going to explain it all within that episode. And if you guys want to check out our full live album reaction to the Death of Slim Shady, you guys could do so. All you have to do is click the pinned comment. Thank you guys so much for coming through tonight. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.